Listen, I'm here to debunk a much anticipated diet trend. Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and click on that notification button to get a notification every time that I post. So today we are back with another episode in the segment Dietitian Debunks Diet Trends. Listen, I'm here to debunk a much anticipated diet trend that has been blowing up for a very long time. A lot of you guys have been asking me to review this specific diet, so I thought that it would be good for me to dive straight in. So today we're going to be talking about intermittent fasting and what the science says. So yeah, before we get into it, just remember that all the information in this video is purely for education and entertainment purposes, and that you should definitely go and consult your nearest health professional if you have any specific needs for your specific case. So without further ado, let's get right on into this video. And if you would like to hear more about intermittent fasting, keep watching. For those of you who don't know what intermittent fasting is, let me break it down for you. The diet is kind of self-explanatory in the sense that intermittent fasting is when you go through a period of time where you're eating or feeding and a time where you are fasting or not eating. There's different intermittent fasting regimes that are out there. We have alternate day fasting, where you sort of cycle between one day where you're feeding and one day where you're fasting. And then you have the 5-2 diet, which is where you have 5 days where you're feeding and then 2 days where you're fasting. And then you have time restricted feeding, which is the one that is probably the one that's most well known. You're basically going through a restricted time where you're supposed to eat and then the time where you're not supposed to eat. So it can be either 8 hours, 6 hours, 4 hours of feeding or fasting. And then you have the warrior diet. The warrior diet is basically where you fast and then at night you have one big meal. And then another one that I found was the eat, stop, eat. So basically there's about 2 times a week where you're not eating for 24 hours, which sounds like hell. Okay, so there's a few definitions that you're gonna need to remember because I don't want you to get lost in the source or lost in the science.
Okay.
So first thing, the definitions of the different types of intermittent fasting that there are. And secondly, when I speak about continuous energy restriction, I'm basically saying calorie restriction. So what calorie restriction is eating less than you usually do. It usually means that I will be eating about 500 to 750 calories less than what I would usually eat. So if I ate 2,000 calories, I'm going to be now eating 1,500 calories. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Now we can move forward. Okay, so basically from looking at the Google search, intermittent fasting has been said to have antioxidant, anti-aging effects, weight loss effects, effects on blood sugar and lipid profiles and other biomarkers, reducing stress in the body and play a role in functioning of your genes and your hormones. But I'm going to be focusing more on weight loss and type 2 diabetes. The studies that were done on the antioxidant effects of intermittent fasting and the anti-aging effects. So there was a specific study that was looking into intermittent fasting, how it can essentially be a new approach for preventing age-associated diseases, and basically looking specifically into intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting did help to reduce the pro-inflammatory proteins, so all of the proteins that increase inflammation, and we know that inflammation is what is responsible for most diseases, including age-associated diseases, especially things like Alzheimer's. Calorie restriction has been seen in a lot of the science to help reducing or preventing the risk of developing things like Alzheimer's. So it is quite interesting. There's very limited human studies that are out there, so I think it's very necessary for there to be a lot more studies, first of all, that are done on humans. Okay, so let's talk about intermittent fasting and diabetes, because there's a lot of claims that are out there about how intermittent fasting can really help with blood sugar control. So basically there was a study that looked at the effects of intermittent fasting that was done specifically on diabetes. Was a 5-2 diet structure of intermittent fasting versus normal continuous energy restriction, and how that affects your blood sugar control. And this was a study where they did a 2-year follow-up, and what they they found was that in both groups there was some weight loss that happened, but that specific marker for diabetes called HbA1c increased in both groups. The second study looked at the effects of intermittent fasting, specifically the 5-2 diet versus just normal calorie restrictive diet, and they basically looked at the effects on blood sugar control and weight loss, and they did the study over 12 months, and it was done on adults. And what they saw was the effects that a normal calorie restrictive diet have on adults with type 2 diabetes is the same as intermittent fasting. Being a diabetic, you know that your blood sugars need to stay within a specific safe zone before and after you're eating. So there is a risk that you might have like a hypoglycemic emergency, so your blood sugars may become very low. And in this study, I think there was about 60% of the participants didn't go into sort of hypoglycemic emergency. So if you are diabetic, you really do need to consult the necessary health professionals should you want to do intermittent fasting. Okay, so let's talk about now weight and weight loss. So there was another study that was done on healthy obese adults, essentially looking at intermittent fasting and the effect of specifically the alternate day fasting on weight loss, whether it's better or more superior to a normal calorie restrictive diet, or if there's like fat profile all stay the same. Intermittent fasting, or the alternate day fasting specifically, it wasn't superior like in terms of like weight loss or maintenance when you compare it to a normal like calorie restrictive diet. There was also a study that which was done, and it was a 1-year randomized trial, basically looking at the effects of intermittent fasting versus just continuous energy restriction, and then looking at its effect on weight loss, different cardiometabolic risk. I'll put a description of what that means down below. And basically the study was done on about 112 participants. So the study included visits to dietitians and follow-up after a 6-month period. So looking at those like cardiometabolic risks, so looking at improvements in like blood pressure or in good cholesterol, there was a similar trend within both the groups. There was a certain difference within weight loss that was similar in both groups. So both groups were able to lose a little bit of weight, but something that they did highlight within the study was that the people or the group who were doing the intermittent fasting had much higher hunger scores, so they experienced hunger a lot more than the group that was just doing sort of calorie restriction. Okay, so a systematic review was done, and basically the question was like, does intermittent fasting actually help with weight loss, and like are there more benefits to intermittent fasting versus just like the normal energy restriction? Yeah, basically what the study did is it looked at about 40 different like publications, so 40 different sort of articles that are out there, and basically analyze them. And essentially the study just saw that intermittent fasting isn't superior to just normal like calorie restriction, and you will experience some changes in your body. I mean, you'll lose a couple of centimeters on your hips and on your waist, but overall intermittent fasting won't give you more benefits than just normal calorie restriction.
Pause this whole thing right now. Pause this whole thing right now. Pause this whole thing right now.
So some of the side effects that people might experience if they do intermittent fasting are hunger, irritability. You also might experience some brain fog and struggle to concentrate, and those are sort of more initial symptoms that people tend to experience when they start intermittent fasting. All in all, if you want to do intermittent fasting, you can definitely go ahead and do it. If you're an athlete, if you're pregnant, or if you are a teenager, you have higher energy needs, so intermittent fasting isn't something that will be advised to do during those periods of your life. Also, if you are someone who's struggling with an eating disorder, it is much better to follow the plan that your dietitian has made specifically for you, rather than focusing on this kind of diet. But the evidence and the science is showing intermittent fasting isn't any better for you than a normal like weight loss kind of diet. The wellness industry and fitness industry also have put intermittent fasting on this pedestal. My final thoughts, I guess, is just do what works for you. If you want to do quote-unquote intermittent fasting, do it. If you don't feel like breakfast in the morning, don't force yourself. Eat when you feel hungry. If you're eating a banana at 8 a.m. and you're eating a banana at 8 p.m., it's still a banana. It's still going to have the same amount of nutrients. So if you're going to start intermittent fasting and essentially maybe start eating less because of the time restricted nature of intermittent fasting, then of course you're going to have weight loss benefits in the short term because you've restricted the amount of food that you usually eat. So the science says if you restrict calories to about, I think it's about 500 to 750 calories, like if you restrict that amount of calories on a daily basis, that you are going to see weight loss. That's just what the science says. So whether you're eating for 6 hours or for 8 hours, if you're going to be eating a little bit less than you were before, you're going to lose weight. You don't need to restrict yourself to specific times, specific days to eat. Essentially, the basis of like weight loss is just following the weight loss principles of portion control and eating a lot of good quality foods, a lot of fruits and vegetables and proteins and healthy fats, and you're sort of shying away from the hard, saturated and trans fats, and you're eating a lot more lean meat and lean protein, and you're not eating as much, a little bit less than you were before, which tends to happen anyways once you start including a lot more fruits and vegetables and fiber-rich carbs in there, because they keep you full for longer. Then you're gonna see the benefits long-term for weight loss. So I think that it's so interesting to see what the study is saying. There's plenty of more sustainable ways to lose weight. I think that if intermittent fasting is something that works for you, great. Don't do it thinking it's gonna reap better results than just, the normal weight loss principles, because it's not going to. That's just it. So I messed up and did my intro twice, but anyways guys, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and click on that notification button to get a notification every time that I post, and I'll see you in the next video.